The blast ripped through the quiet morning, shattering the tranquility that had settled over the city. It was 8:02 a.m. in Balashika, a city on the outskirts of Moscow, where life was just beginning to stir. People were starting their day, unaware of the violence about to unfold, going about their routines with no inkling of the impending disaster. Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskalik, a highly decorated officer, was approaching his parked car, ready to embark on another day of service. He had just left his apartment building, a place of security and normalcy, a sanctuary from the outside world. Suddenly, a deafening roar shattered the peace, a sound so loud it seemed to split the air itself. An inferno of fire and shrapnel engulfed the general's car, turning it into a blazing wreck within seconds. The force of the explosion shook nearby buildings, causing structural damage and instilling fear in the hearts of residents. Windows shattered, showering the street with glass, creating a scene of chaos and destruction. Car alarms wailed in response to the chaos, their piercing sounds adding to the pandemonium. A thick cloud of black smoke billowed into the sky, a grim beacon visible for miles, signaling the tragedy that had just occurred. When the smoke cleared, the twisted wreckage of the car was all that remained, a stark reminder of the violence. Lieutenant General Moskalik was dead, instantly killed by the blast, his life snuffed out in an instant. The assassination sent shockwaves through Russia, a nation already on edge. The attack was a brazen act of violence against a high-ranking military figure, a bold statement that reverberated through the corridors of power. Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskalik was not just another soldier, he was a man whose name commanded respect and fear in equal measure. He was the deputy head of the main operational directorate of the Russian General Staff, a position of immense power and responsibility. A brilliant strategist, he was a key architect of Russia's military operations, shaping the tactics and strategies that defined modern Russian warfare. His understanding of modern warfare was unparalleled, making him an invaluable asset to the Russian military. Moskalik had been instrumental in shaping Russia's military doctrine, influencing the training and deployment of troops. He had played a critical role in the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, directing operations and strategies on the ground. His death was a significant blow to the Russian military apparatus, leaving a void that would be hard to fill. Moskalik was a controversial figure, his actions and beliefs sparking intense debate and division. He was a staunch nationalist and a vocal supporter of the war in Ukraine, believing it was essential for Russia's future. He believed in Russia's right to assert its dominance in the region, a stance that shaped his military strategies. His hardline stance had made him both respected and feared within the military and beyond. To his supporters, he was a hero, a defender of Russia's interests and a symbol of national pride. To his critics, he was a warmonger, a symbol of Russia's aggression and a man whose legacy would be debated for years to come. The timing of the assassination was no coincidence. It came just hours before a scheduled meeting between U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and President Vladimir Putin. The talks were seen as a crucial step towards ending the conflict in Ukraine. There was a fragile hope that a diplomatic solution could be found. The assassination shattered that hope. It cast a long shadow over the peace talks. It raised serious questions about the viability of a negotiated settlement. The United States condemned the assassination in the strongest possible terms. It called for a thorough and transparent investigation. However, the damage was done. The attack had poisoned the atmosphere. It had deepened the mistrust between Russia and the West. The peace talks were postponed indefinitely. Section 4. Whispers of Retribution. Suspicion immediately fell on Ukraine, a nation already embroiled in conflict and controversy. The attack bore all the hallmarks of a Ukrainian operation, meticulously planned and executed. The use of a car bomb, the timing, and the target all pointed to Kyiv, leaving little room for doubt. Ukraine had a clear motive, driven by a desire to strike back at its oppressor. Moskalik was a high-value target, a symbol of Russian aggression and dominance. His death was a major propaganda victory for Ukraine, a moment of triumph in a long and bitter struggle. It showed that Russia was not invincible, that even the mightiest could fall. It sent a message that those responsible for the war would be held accountable, no matter how powerful they seemed. However, Ukraine denied any involvement in the assassination, calling for an impartial investigation. It called the accusations baseless and provocative, a ploy to justify further aggression. Ukraine claimed that Russia was trying to use the attack as a pretext for escalation, to further its own agenda. The truth, as always, was shrouded in mystery, hidden behind layers of propaganda and misinformation. The world watched and waited, bracing for what might come next, uncertain of the future. Section 5. Echoes of Violence. The assassination of Moskalik was not an isolated incident. It was part of a larger pattern of targeted killings. Since the start of the war in Ukraine, there had been a number of high-profile assassinations. Russian officials, journalists, and dissidents had been killed in mysterious circumstances. The attacks were often brazen, carried out in broad daylight. The perpetrators were rarely caught. These killings created an atmosphere of fear and paranoia. They silenced dissent and made it dangerous to criticize the government. The Kremlin denied any involvement in the killings. It blamed the attacks on foreign agents and domestic enemies. However, many believed that the Russian government was behind the assassinations. They saw the killings as a way to eliminate opponents and silence critics. Section 6. A World on Edge. The assassination of Lieutenant General Moskalik sent shockwaves through the international community. World leaders condemned the attack and called for calm. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. There were fears that the assassination could lead to a wider conflict. The killing raised the specter of a new Cold War, one with even higher stakes. The international community urged both sides to exercise restraint. The stakes were too high for another war. The world held its breath, hoping that diplomacy would prevail. But in the wake of the assassination, the future seemed more uncertain than ever.